So today I'm going to be revisiting an old topic that I did almost 2 years ago, and that's about the idea of Tobirama versus Kisame. Now, of course, time has passed, and some of the things that were said in that video, I feel like need to be re-clarified, and there are some other things that I feel like should just be brought to light and kind of like a retrospective. So today I'm going to be doing this with another content creator. His name's ThunderGod. I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself.
What's going on, guys? TG or ThunderGod here, and thank you for New Horizons for having me on the channel. It's a very cool opportunity.
At the same time I'm uploading this, he's gonna be uploading a video where we talk about Sage Mode Naruto versus Kage Summit Sasuke on his channel, and I'll try to remember to put the link to that in his channel in the description. But let's go ahead and start off. And when it comes to Tobirama versus Kisame, we're gonna start off with talking about like taijutsu and close quarters combat. So I'll go ahead and let TG start here.
So as far as taijutsu and close quarters combat for Tobirama and Kisame, I see analogy for this. We have a fighter like Sugetsu who has pretty decent lore about Kisame and the Seven Ninja Swordsman. He's very confident at the idea of taking on Kisame and dueling him for Samehada. Same thing, he tries it again, and Obito or Toby like intercepts his blade at some point. But the prospect of fighting Tobirama is very daunting to him when Tobirama lifts a finger up in some of his aura shows. So I think, in my opinion, that says something about the matchup. Now, as far as Tobirama in terms of a taijutsu fighter, he's very relevant in the war arc, barring his abilities, right? His reaction times alone really say something that he's able to, perceive these fighters and at the very least help out in the war effort against, characters like Jubito and, Madara by extension. So I think that says something too about like his taijutsu capabilities. As the bare minimum, he's able to like see these fighters in actual combat and perceive them. So he should have a good grasp on, in terms of like hand to hand, he would be able to perceive Kisame pretty confidently in my eyes, especially if it comes to like they're just kind of dancing around each other and he's trying to avoid the sword Samehada. And there's this big back and forth. I think there's going to be a lot of Kisame swinging around and trying to hit Tobirama while Torama just kind of jumps away and just kind of dodges around. What's your take on Tobirama and Kisame and like the taijutsu kind of fight fest?
So when it comes to like Tobirama, he was able when Jubito blitzed him. Of course, he wasn't able to react by moving, but he was able to put some explosive tags on him. And you have to give a lot of respect to that. Now, I think he was anticipating for Jubito to blitz him there, but he still was able to land the explosive tags without Obito realizing. And of course, should be much faster than Kisame. Now, when it comes to just physical speed, like just like boxing, it's kind of we don't know much about what Tobirama is capable of. And for this section, we're not going to talk about Flying Thunder God too much. We're going to save that for more the end of the video. We do know that with Kisame, like with version 1B, he was able to just easily react to him and just manhandle him. But when version 2B came out, he didn't really do anything and he just let B hit him. So that's kind of the extent that we know with Kisame and just like Taijutsu. But with Tobirama, we know that he did lose to Kinku and Gingaku, who were also version 2. Now, mind you, that was Nine Tails version 2. So I'm just throwing some information out there. It's kind of hard to quantify like how they're gonna do with Taijutsu, but Tobirama's definitely faster than him. But I think we can all agree that Kisame has like way more strength. Because I mean, like Kisame was able to overpower version 1B, who was able to just destroy Sasuke at or MS Sasuke. Now, when it comes to like Samihada in the situation, perhaps he could hit Tobirama once, like down the road, and he would steal some chakra, but Tobirama would be able to realize that. And after that, I don't think that Tobirama is going to be playing it much more safe if Kisame decides to take some Tobirama chakra here. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I actually want to add on to a couple things. For starters, in terms of looking at Tobirama and like in terms of pure taijutsu, I actually think there is a decent way at least to kind of gauge like where he's at. If we look at him in part one, right, with a far inferior reanimation, he's able to throw hands and combat the likes of, Old Man Hiruzen. I'm not saying he is pretty relative to Hiruzen at this point, to the point where it actually forces Hiruzen to use, the Reaper Dead Seal to take him down. Now, respect on Hiruzen, he also was, fighting Hashirama at the same time in a far weaker version, but Tobirama is able to box with him at points during the fight. They are able to have hand to hand back and forth. And Hiruzen and Orochimaru actually noted to have they're equally matched. They're not in the data book to actually be equally matched at portions during the fight. It's during the portion where Orochimaru's using his sword and Hiruzen's using his like Enma. Yeah, he's using Enma like the bow staff. And we know Kisame as a fighter notes that he's not really at the Sanin tier in terms of like just being at that level. So you could interpret this as Tobirama is able to combat somebody in terms of pure physical combat relative to a tier that Kisame himself doesn't really think he stacks on. Which I mean, you could use as a way to kind of look at the difference in terms of their abilities at that point. And I think a little bit to add on to this too, in terms of like Tobirama's reaction time too. We also do have a couple other examples of him reacting in pure combat. We know when Madara gets one Rinnegan and he has Hashirama Sage mode, Tobirama, barring Flying Thunder God, he actually is able to react to. Yeah, he's able to react to Madara. Now, I'm not actually going to quote the teleportation, but on some level, Tobirama does have to perceive Madara's moves to activate his jutsu. So I do think Tobirama does have some decent close quarters combat feats that we can actually use. And I definitely agree with what you were saying before that it's going to be very, very hard for Kisame to really hit Tobirama at this point in the fight. And it really comes down to if he's able to start swiping some chakra from him. Because that's the whole point of Kisame, and that's when the fight starts turning in Kisame's favor. So you could say all it takes is one chakra swipe, and then Kisame is also starting to gain on Tobirama. So I think you have kind of like someone trying to catch a fly in this scenario in terms of a fight, definitely. So I agree with what you were saying for sure.
So I'll just say one more thing and then we'll move on to like water style. When it comes to like the Sonic stuff, like comparing him to Hiruzen and stuff like that, I think that Kisame was like the thing with the Kisame and Jiraiya, he kind of asked Itachi like Jiraiya's pretty tough. I don't know if we can beat him. And I think that anyone knows that like Kisame and Itachi working together can beat Jiraiya. Um, so I think that's Kisame just kind of not being super knowledgeable on like Sonin strength and just knows about their legend. And I would say that like with Kisame, like he's can basically just is easily overpowering version 1B. Like even with 30% chakra, he was easily overpowering Guy, who has plenty of physical strength. So when it comes to like, and also of course it's going to be harder to hit him because Tobirama is a lot faster, it seems. But if he does hit him, I mean, even having a sword and a taijutsu exchange helps them, even if it's heavy and probably not that best for like, it's not like Sasuke's sword or anything.
Yeah.
But I think like he could land some type of hit on him eventually. But Tobirama's definitely got the speed going here, but Kisame's got the firepower. So we'll leave that there. We're gonna go ahead and talk about water style. So when it comes to like water style, I think that Kisame is way can create way more water than Tobirama. Now we don't really know how much water can Tobirama can create because it never really called for it. But when he was in that weakened Edo state against Hiruzen, he did create a lot on that rooftop, and it was something to respect. But during the war, like the situation just didn't call for it. But we do know that with Tobirama, some people think he has like no chakra reserves when it's actually the exact opposite. Like when he was flexing on Orochimaru and Sasuke, everyone respected his chakra reserves in that scenario. And then even like during the war, like I thought he showed great ability to use chakra, like teleporting the full Nine Tails and Naruto and Minato, which was something that Minato struggled with, teleporting the Nine Tails. But anyway, when it comes to Kisame, we do know that when he was using his 30% chakra clone, he just created an entire lake like that very easily. And I mean, that was just with 30% chakra. And then we see when he fights B, he's able to create a large amount of chakra that was so big that the Rekage's company could easily see it, like they couldn't even ignore it. So when it comes to that with water style, it's kind of hard to tell how much Tobirama can create, but I still think that Kisame has the advantage here because it's Samihada and his super water shark bomb. So with Samihada, or whatever it is, it's able to absorb jutsu. Like when Itachi tried to use Fire Style against B, he just Samihada nullified it. So that's something that Kisame can do with Tobirama's water style if necessary. And then you also have things like the Super Water Shark Bomb, which absorbs other jutsus to make it stronger and then attack the other user. So when it comes to that, I'm definitely taking Kisame because we know what he can do. And although Tobirama does have incredible chakra reserves, so does Kisame, considering he was called the Tailless Tailed Beast. And then with Samihada and the Super Water Shark Bomb should definitely give him the edge here.
So I definitely, for starters, I definitely agree with you that we've seen a lot more from Kisame in terms of water style manipulation and just water style technique. So to say that Kisame has more of an arsenal with water style, 100% agree. And there's actually two things I want to know. One on the water style, one on the Samehada, because I think there's some things that impact the fight. So for starters, if Kisame creates like a large lake of water, I do think it fuels both of their arsenals for one. So I don't know how advantageous it really would be for Kisame. But here's what I do know. He definitely has a lot more slippery water style techniques. Like, for example, right? Let's say he uses like his water style shark bomb, and Tobirama uses that one jets. I forget it's like the water style slicing wave where he shoots water style from his mouth and does like a
severing wave, I think.
yeah, severing wave. Yeah, and he was able to slice through like Hiruzen's mud wall and the God tree. Let's say he does that. Then you could just say like Kisame is able to do that water style shark shower and just create more sharks from whatever. So I can't see this being a situation where Tobirama's water style necessarily counteracts Kisame's water style, because it almost doesn't matter if like Kisame's breaks apart. He simply can just reform it and use more techniques. So I definitely agree at this point that Kisame would have a technique advantage in terms of water style, as all Tobirama would do is just destroy his bodies of water, in which Kisame can simply manipulate to make more sharks from, while Tobirama can't use another technique. So one thing I do want to note though, and I think this is a big point when determining this matchup, and I think we could talk about this a little bit later, but if Tobirama actually does disarm Samehada from Kisame, that's going to change a bit how the water style fight goes and how this fight goes in general, especially considering when the ninja swordsmen lose their weapons. They're almost not at 50% power. Kakashi notes this in the war arc. So basically their strength is nerfed heavily by by losing their like ninja weapon, which you can see by Kisame, as he's pretty crazy with Samehada. He's able to ragdoll be around in that water bubble. And you could definitely make some sort of assertion that he could do the same to Tobirama. I think there's also the idea of like a war style fight takes place if Tobirama is able to disarm Samehada. But barring that, right, I definitely think Kisame does have a bit of a water style advantage here. I think it'd be a little disingenuous to say like Tobirama could just body all of his water style techniques with his own, just like him having a superior mastery over it. I think that'd be a little disingenuous to say, you know. So I'm definitely on the Kisame side when it comes to the water style techniques.
Yeah, I will say though that with Tobirama, like some people try to bring up like he could only use 2 shadow clones, but in that manga panel or whatever, but he was being restricted because he was trying to use the barrier to restrain the Ten Tails.
Yeah.
And we saw that the other Kage were struggling to use shadow clones as well. And also, Tobirama definitely has high chakra reserves. That's something you can't really deny. Like, he shows it and he's a Senju, but we also know that Kisame's definitely has it as well. So, yeah, we agree on the water style, but I know that TG, you wanted to talk about, like, Tobirama's Genjutsu. I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's a interesting note to like point out in this fight. You also brought up shadow clones, which is also something important to make note of, since like Tobirama also has access to those. But he has the Bringer of Darkness Genjutsu, which essentially it puts their eyes in like a hypnotic state where everything's dark. Now, it doesn't limit the other senses, so you could make some assertions, like let's say some like based on how the fight goes, like let's say Samehada does get a piece of Tobirama's chakra, it would be able to sense where he's at points in the fight. But let's say he doesn't. This could be a GG for Kisame at this point in the fight. Now, if they're fighting on water, you could just maybe make the argument that Kisame would hear his like footsteps on the water or something like that. If he's just running or not using any teleportation or anything like that. But it is something to note that he has the ability to put Kisame under Genjutsu, which could greatly benefit him if he starts to use that in conjunction with clones and some of his other techniques, which we haven't named yet. So I think that's a point to like bring up in this fight. But if Samehada does get a whiff of Tobirama's chakra, or there's water surrounding the battlefield, I think there are some ways for Kisame to visualize Tobirama in the area or become aware of his presence.
Yeah, with this Genjutsu, like he was able to cast it on Hiruzen despite being an heavily nerfed Edo. Now, of course, we never see him use it again because I guess the opportunity didn't arise. But let's say like whether or not he can use it on Kisame, I'm not sure because Kisame definitely has more chakra than like an old Hiruzen. But then again, Tobirama's was suppressed. So let's say that even if like Kisame is caught under it, like he can create water, like he could create like his water dome, which would definitely help. And then also, I'm pretty sure with Samihada, I think it can just sense chakra not without even having to like touch the person. So like for example, like I'm pretty sure he found B just because Samihada followed like the chakra trail or whatever. Or it's not really sure how he found it, but I'm pretty sure that Samihada was helping him there, as he did say that Samihada had an affinity for his chakra. And even with like let's say he can't sense them either, like if he creates water around him, that's gonna make it harder for Tobirama to move without and be sneaky. And even Hiruzen was able to react to some of Tobirama's and Hashirama's attacks while he was under the Genjutsu. So it's not like he's just totally blind here. And I think there are ways to counter it, and he might even be immune. And also, another thing that I think we should bring up is the tandem paper bomb, because he can only use that if he's using Edo Tensei.
Yeah, that's not.
So
Yeah. I wouldn't say
yeah,
it's relevant. Yeah, yeah.
some people like if we're talking about even Edo Tensei might be an advantage here for Tobirama because if he was Edo Tensei, he could use this. And if it did hit Kisame, I would say Kisame would be done because the tandem paper bomb is no joke and is probably on scale with Hiradora, which basically almost killed Kisame. But of course, Edo Tensei is considered forbidden by Tobirama, so it's not relevant for a live version.
I actually have a bit of an like analogy for like tandem paper bomb. And I actually think there's the possibility that if Tobirama like is able to use it while he's alive, which I don't think he is because he's like says he made it specifically as an Edo Tensei to fight. But let's say he is he basically is able to blow up the Hashirama's gracious deity gate. And this same deity gate was actually able to survive an explosion by the Ten Tails Bijou Bomb. So if Kisame actually, like, let's say Tobirama actually does whip this out, I don't think there's any chance of Kisame surviving it if it's able to blow up something Ten Tails attack couldn't blow up. I just don't think that. But obviously that's a bit of a reach considering he only uses it while he's in Edo Tensei. And you'd be making the assumption like he's able to use it while he's alive, and it's a last resort if anything, if it even gets to that point. But I just thought that was something worth noting.
Yeah, with the tandem paper bomb, like when he used it, he like grabs, like he just grabbed his chest and then threw out a paper bomb
Yeah,
and it just started multiplying. So like he can't do that if he's alive,
yeah.
So I think we kind of covered everything but flying Thunder God at this point. And so we'll first start with talking about it on defense. So I'll let TG start with talking about it on defense.
So I think there's a couple ways to look at this, right? I think it really depends on how Tobirama is doing in the fight, right? Because we could see a couple scenarios, right? Let's say he's gonna get hit by an attack. He could throw some kunai and teleport it to Kisame. Something I could see happening, and this is like noted when he does it against Madara, but it's the two-step attack he does. Essentially, he tries to like flying thunder god GG Madara. It doesn't work, and he teleports to the kunai right above for an instant GG. It's a possibility. Basically what I'm getting at is Tobirama has a good habit in fighting of throwing out kunai with the flying thunder god on it in case he's going to get hit by an attack or he, sees something that he might not be able to get in the way of, but is still able to perceive and activate his jutsu in response to. So it's definitely something that can be used to support him. And it definitely almost prevents an instant GG in his case because it's just so strong for avoiding so many attacks. And the fact that he carries it with him at all times, and the fact that he could possibly like mark Kisame and like teleport to him as well to avoid an attack, it's very strong. So he always has an option to teleport somewhere with his flying Thunder God. So what's your take on it? What's your take on the flying Thunder God? Because I think it's going to be very strong in this matchup, barring his like regular combat speed.
So there's a lot of like you really have to think about like how Tobirama uses Flying ThunderGod, and I think some people kind of over or underpower it and overpower it. So like for example, they like to bring up like he fought Madara, but we saw how that ended. Like people also bring up like Obito fought Minato, but he ended up getting bodied, and this is what happened with Tobirama and Madara. Now it is fair to say though that when Tobirama did try to surprise him, and then Madara instantly counterattacked, he did react, which is very impressive. He can react and teleport out of the way. So if he can do that with Madara, he can definitely do that with Kisame, especially since Kisame has that heavy sword of his. Now, when it comes to like how much he can use it though, it's not like with Minato. So like with when Minato fought Obito, he was constantly teleporting away from Obito when he tried to suck him in and stuff. He was teleporting to like way other places around the leaf and stuff. But with Tobirama, he uses it differently. He doesn't use it quite as not quite he doesn't quite get the potential out of flying Raijin like Minato does. So like I said with like Madara, he we do see him teleport once to get out of the way, but he ends up getting defeated anyway. And like we don't see other points like he doesn't teleport against like Jubito or like when he's fighting against Jubito, he's only really using it for offense and he's not like trying to teleport himself away and stuff. So it's not like we're Minato where he's just gonna spam it. Now, another thing is when it comes to teleporting Samihata away, I don't think that really works as well because, like, let's say if this was Minato, Minato could teleport it far away if he had like a kunai marker set there because he might do something like that. But with Tobirama, we don't really see him doing clever things like that. It's not like Tobirama's like, let's teleport like Jubito like to the other side of the world or something. That's kind of extreme, but like even if he teleports Samihata a good bit away, I don't think that would happen. Samihata can like move on its own, so Kisame could possibly get it back at the end of the fight. And also, if Tobirama's touching Samihata, he's gonna have to. It's probably gonna drain his chakra, so it's a risky move there. So really, when it comes to like using Flying Thunder God to like react and stuff, yeah, like if there's some big water style jutsu coming towards Tobirama, I can see him throwing a kunai somewhere else and teleporting out of the way. But I mean, he's not going to be spamming it like Minato, as we did see what happened with Madara, and he never really shows just total spam with it.
I agree with
Anything you
that.
want to add to that?
I actually agree with that. It's more I guess you could say in his character to simply use it as he almost just uses it strictly as a counter attack. I think the best example really is just with Izuna. He lets himself get hit by a technique, or he doesn't let himself. This is anime filler. But you could argue it's just Studio Periot's like interpretation of the fight. Izuna looks at him in the eye. He gets kicked. He blocks an attack. Smoke appears, and then he does it. So you could, and like that's kind of contradictory because if they fought that many times, you would think he would try to use it better or more often to try and kill Izuna sooner. But essentially, he just uses it more offensively and as a counterattack. He doesn't really spam it to avoid techniques. So I definitely agree with what you were saying. I definitely think it's more of a offensive thing. He doesn't quite have the same finesse as Minato quite does. He's not as slippery as Minato either. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, with Aizen, I think that perhaps that was like the first time he ever used it because Aizen looked pretty surprised when that happened. I don't think anyone was accounting for it. So, but also when it comes to like Kisame trying to figure it out, like when he started using it, if he sees Tobirama use it on defense for it first, like if he's trying to block to escape from an attack or water style, that's definitely going to be in Kisame's favor. because it'll help deciphering it for when Tobirama tries to use it on offense. And I think that Kisame's like he was deciphering B fine. Like he's like average intelligence or whatever. But it doesn't take like a genius to find out like the basics of flying Raijin. Like if he's seeing him like throw kunai and stuff and teleporting, he's gonna realize that and he's probably gonna realize like he needs to be on his guard at all times in case he teleports to him. So we can go ahead and talk about flying ThunderGod on offense now. So I'll let you go ahead and start with that.
So this is where I see Tobirama gaining most of his victories. It's gonna be the way I perceive this, right? Is this fight is either going to be very quick or very, very long. And what I mean by that is Tobirama, in my opinion, is either gonna catch Kisame off guard with the Flying Thunder God, and I don't think you could. He might not be able to one shot him necessarily because Samehada could heal him, but if he does, maybe he decapitates his head. I guess you would have to, infer where he would hit him. But there is the possibility of a very quick victory here, especially as we covered previously. If he's able to react to these like War Arc level opponents and he's able to activate his jutsu at that level, and he's faster than Kisame, there's a very strong chance that this fight could end as quickly as it begins. Now, that also depends if he really has the ability to kill Kisame. For all we know, he does it on Kisame. He doesn't go for a kill shot, and Kisame regens and now has intel on Flying Raijin. But I think it really just depends on where you think Tobirama would slash him. But I do think there is like a very strong possibility that the fight could end very early here. But as equally as that, there's the possibility that Kisame lives and starts regenning and now has intel on this technique that Tobirama just gave away.
Yeah, when it comes to like how he's gonna use it, like let's say I'm not sure if he would use it. Like I don't really know what his style is with using it because he used it, I guess like against Eisner, he used it at the end of the fight, but that might have been like the first time he ever used it. It was kind of like risky. But when it comes to like the war arc and using it on offense, we see him use it a lot, but he's like teleporting other people like Naruto to attack Jubito and stuff. So I mean, even if we say like he doesn't the first time he uses it is like a flying rising slice instead of like to teleport away from an attack. Like let's say, and when it comes to flying rising slices, like against Aizen, he hits a vital point in the torso. Like against Madara, he's aiming against the torso. And in general in Naruto, when people go for vital points, they're usually going for the torso because you can't dodge like with your neck, like how your neck can move much more easier and quicker. So it's much more risky just to go straight for the head. And we know that Tobirama's been going for body vital points. So the first time he's going to use it on offense, he's going to go like and try to hit him in the heart or whatever vital point. And when it comes to that, like I think Kisame regens that easy because we know that already, like against B, he used that version 2 chakra he absorbs to heal like his entire chest, like it was entirely ripped open. But with Kisame, he already has tailed beast levels of chakra anyway. And even with like version 1 Naruto at the end of part 1 was able to heal Sasuke piercing his lung just almost instantly. So I think with Kisame here, like he should be able to just heal through whatever attack is thrown at him, and then Tobirama will not note that, which will be important for Tobirama to do. And then like he can try to go for the neck, but just remember that's going to be a lot harder because one, Kisame will understand how the jutsu works at that point, and two, trying to cut his head off is probably it's going to be harder to do that because he can dodge easier. And I mean, even like when Shikamaru tried to cut Hidan's head off, he didn't. The cut was too shallow, so something like that could happen too. And then Kisame can just regenerate. So, and then I mean, I'll let you go ahead and have any rebuttal you have right there.
I definitely agree slash disagree. I think it does. I think the main thing here is it does depend. The main thing I agree with is it does depend where Tobirama hits him because if he does go for any body shots, it's very possible that well, it's not very possible. Kisame is going to regen it. You can only do so much damage with a kunai, and it's not like he's like this person that has like this insane level of strength physically speaking. He's very fast, but it's not like he's like Tsunade who's gonna like destroy the whole landscape with his kunai slash. It's just not going to happen. So unless you interpret it as he's going to go for a neck shot, which I mean would be like more of a bloodlusted thing, because I actually really like the narrative you painted that he more so goes for torso shots. You could imply that that's the most likely outcome. I also think something that's interesting is like how soon after Kisame reacts and like what Tobirama does. For example, if he goes for a torso shot and then like he sees Kisame is gonna go alive, does he simply teleport again before Kisame absorbs more chakra? You know, there's also these other variables in the fight, so I think that is also something to note. Because for all we know, he could just keep teleporting on offense, especially if he just has a bunch of kunai on the field or some are thrown. But the main thing I want to get across is I do agree that if he doesn't go for a neck shot, Kisame is going to regen and the fight is going to continue. So that would kind of be like how you would take it from there with their like stats in comparison to one another. So I actually think you did a really good job there.
Yeah, and like with the, I definitely think that with like the first time he uses it, he's going for the body because that's his MO. But after that, he's gonna note like this guy can regenerate. If I'm gonna kill him with a kunai, I'm gonna have to plain cut his neck off, and that's gonna be harder because Kisame is gonna know what's gonna happen. He's gonna anticipate it, whether or not he can dodge it. I mean, it's kind of ambiguous, but I think that it's gonna be much harder for Tobirama to pull that off. And also, like, I think we've said our piece on that, and we can kind of transition into like, does Tobirama have like the pure firepower just to kill Kisame with any type of attack or whatever? And like I said, like we said earlier, like if he uses tandem paper bomb, that's gonna kill him, but that's only at a Tensei move. And when it comes to like, let's say Tobirama overpowers his water style or uses some type of water style user jutsu on him, I don't think it's going to just kill him. Like with Kisame, he survived a Hirodora from Seven Gate Sky, and then after that, he was still tried to move to attack Guy. And even after that, when they had started to interrogate him, and Yamato was restricting him with wood style, he still plain overpowered the wood style, which is some. And despite after being hit by Hirodora and getting punched by Seven Gates Guy right after that Hirodora. So I don't think seeing what Tobirama has done throughout the series, like I don't think he can just overpower him. Something that Kisame can easily regenerate. Now something with the severing wave though, like we did see the severing wave just cut straight through the god tree, and we even see like when B throws a pencil at him that has lightning style on it. Kisame says that if that would have hit me, that would have gone straight through my head. So you can definitely say that Severing Wave is, I would say, is Tobirama's best win condition here, or cutting off Kisame's head. But with Severing Wave, like I said, Kisame can counter with his own water style, or he can use Samehada to absorb the attack. So I'll go ahead and let TG talk about kill options and firepower here.
I think you actually did a really good job at covering it. And I was gonna bring up the severing wave actually because I agree with you. I think that's also one of his win cons because if it does like just hit Kisame, he's just gonna get cut in half or cut wherever. Like if he slices it across, Kisame is just gonna get split in two. You could maybe infer like flying thunder god plus water style like severing wave, but we've never really seen like Tobirama as a fighter use those two in conjunction. He just really like he uses one or the other. It's really flying thunder god or severing wave. So in my opinion, the fight either ends in like a flying thunder god GG, or maybe Kisame gets caught lacking and he thinks he's like stronger than the water style like severing wave and he gets cut in half, which is possible, but he has like counterattacks. It all depends, but I think you really just did a good job there at covering. I think those are really his win conditions, and then that just kind of goes into like conventional stats and all that. But you pretty much got it, man.
Yeah, I think in terms of, I think we've covered every point here, so I'll let you go ahead and like do a final statement, and then I'll do mine.
So generally, how I look at this is I think Tobirama is a fighter with generally superior stats in terms of speed. I think he does have the tools to win this matchup. He has his flying thunder god, which is even faster than he is. He has very solid feats of reacting to war art characters. So I don't necessarily think Kisame is going to be able to hit him with anything, and it's it's going to be very hard for Kisame to really connect. With that being said, it's also going to be pretty hard to take down Kisame unless Tobirama goes with like one of the kill options we discussed. In which case, yeah, it'd be a GG for Kisame. But you know, if Kisame does start tanking stuff and absorbing more and more chakra, this fight could turn into a disadvantage very easily. So I'm of the opinion this fight either ends very quickly or it's a very long and drawn out fight. Either way, I definitely think that Tobirama, generally with his superior stats, I think he has some better lore and he's just compared to be a much higher tier fighter. I definitely think he would take it. But to say that Kisame doesn't have any possibility of winning, or the fact that like Tobirama one shots him with like a torso like slice from Flying Thunder God, it would be disingenuous to say the least. So there's definitely ways around it, and Kisame's definitely a superior fighter, at least in water style. So there is possibilities here. So I think that's my little piece for this matchup.
Yeah, for my final statement, I'll say that Tobirama definitely has a speed advantage, which is going to help him all over the fight, especially with Taijutsu. Now, Kisame definitely has the physical strength, but in terms of like hitting him with like Samihata, he's not going to be able to do that enough for it to matter that much, but only when it comes to absorbing chakra. Like if he can absorb chakra from Tobirama, who has so much chakra, that's going to be a big advantage for Kisame. And of course, another thing, like I said, with teleporting Samihata, like Tobirama's smart, but I mean, he's not with the flying Raijin, he's not spamming it like Minato or doing clever things like that. So I think if he teleports Samihata, he's just going to get his chakra stolen, then Kisame will get him back pretty quick. And, and more with stuff with like the flying Thunder God, like Tobirama doesn't spam that. Like when he fought against Madara, we do see him use it once, but then after that it goes off panel, and then we see him defeated. So he's not going to spam that like Minato either. So he can use that a couple of times in this fight for sure, but he's not going to just be dodging every attack with Flying Thunder God. I mean, he could, but we never see him do that, so he's not going to. So really, and also like I'd like to say that with this Madara stuff, where people say that Tobirama was going against Madara, like he lost pretty hard, like he got off paneled, but he did show that he could react with Flying Raijin at least once, so we can put respect there. And then, of course, with the water style, like I said, like Kisame definitely is there with Tobirama with chakra, and he also has shown a lot more with using water style. And he also can use, Samihara to absorb the any water styles that come at him, and he can use his super water shark bomb to combat Tobirama's water style. The real problems for Kisame though are the severing wave, which could definitely cut him in half, like he was able to cut the God tree branches in half. So definitely a problem there. Now Samihata could absorb it, but I mean if he catches Kisame lacking, that's gonna be almost an instant win, most likely. And then when it comes to like losing flying Thunder God on offense and like flying Raijin Slice, I what I do believe would happen is that he's gonna hit him in the body, and then Kisame is gonna regenerate and adapt. Like he's gonna understand that he can teleport, and he's probably gonna figure out how the kunai work pretty soon. So really, all in all, I think that Tobirama's severing wave, and if he's fast enough to cut off Kisame's head, is the problem. But I think that Kisame has more away conditions, like with the water style. He's got the strength, and the Samihata is going to be absorbing Tobirama's chakra, which just makes a long fight much more advantageous for Kisame. So I think that's really all. Anything else you want to say, TG?
No, I guess one small thing I could note because it just came to mind while you were mentioning that how durable Samehada hit it like is in comparison to like Tobirama's techniques like the water severing wave, but I generally think Samehada and the Tobirama's attacks should be comparable since they both were like slapping around the god tree. So they both do seem to have a certain level of like durability to them. So really, but that's it. I think you got it. Yeah. I think I said my piece in terms of Tobirama's side. I got you, Tobirama fans. He looks cool. I know. So I think that's really it. I think I said my piece.
Yeah, and like I think that with TG here, like in my last video, we kind of patched out some of the things that may have not been addressed, and some of my opinions that evolved, and I let TG kind of take Tobirama's side here. Tobirama was once underrated, but then we saw him kind of get really overrated. We're trying to like rate him here. And I do think that he definitely has some wing additions in this fight, but I think that Kisame has more. So just a reminder, at the same time I'm uploading this, I'm uploading a video, or TG's uploading a Naruto versus Sasuke, the Kage Summit video. So I'll leave the link to that and a link to his channel in the description. So definitely check that out. Anyway, if you enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos in the future. Comment something if you have something to say. And thank y'all for watching, and I guess I'll see y'all next time.